Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest David Cunningham, and he's here today to share with us his thoughts on change your view, change your life. Now, David is a communication expert and seminar leader for Landmark, which is a personal and professional growth, training, and development company with more than 4.2 million people using its programs. These programs cause such profound breakthroughs in the personal lives of the people that attend. It's also affecting their communities, generating more than 100,000 community projects around the world. In Landmark Forum, Landmark's flagship program, people cause breakthroughs in their performance, communication, relationships, and overall satisfaction for life. So let's welcome to the show, David Cunningham.
Thank you very much.
What a pleasure it is to have you here, David. My goodness, you've been with Landmark forever, and gosh, it's so exciting to have you here with us today.
Seems like forever, right? 35 years, I guess, so. It's been an extraordinary 35 years.
Now, were you with Landmark when it first started or not too soon after it launched?
No, with Landmark, I was definitely there when it first started, and I've been really pleased to watch us to be able to reach out to now 21 countries around the world. It's just amazing, and over 2 million people now have participated in our programs.
Well, I've heard about Landmark for a long time. I've checked into it myself, and it's absolutely awesome. So I'm so glad we're going to be chatting here today about this. And with you being a communications expert, we can't even think of a better time than now to talk about how we communicate with other people, because it seems like it's something we're really having a tough time with right now.
That's right. It is. Conversations between people, even, in families as well as, out in society, conversations seem to be getting more and more uncivil. And even in our homes, people are having arguments that they didn't used to have.
Yeah, it's a different world we live in than 10 or 20 years ago. And so I wanted to ask you, so when we look at changing how we communicate with people, what are some of the things we need to first recognize?
The first thing I think we need to recognize is that everybody has a view of life, and no two people can have the same view. If you and I stand side by side and look out at the world, we will see something different. We can't possibly have the same view. And so that one of the things that people argue about is which view is the right view, which doesn't work because no view is the right view. Actually, each person has their own view. And if we think one of them is right and the other one's wrong, then we'll start an argument versus, hey, this is how I see it. How do you see it? And be really interested in each other's views. Neither one is the right one, but they're both valid.
What's interesting is when, I know I do this, and I think most people do, is when we're listening to people talk, a lot of times we're already trying to formulate what we're going to say next. And so it takes practice to really be present and listen to what that person's saying.
Well, when we're listening to another person, the truth is we're rarely listening to them. And what do I mean by that? Is that when we're listening to another person, we're also talking to ourselves about what they're saying at the exact same time. We do that with that little voice in our head. And while people are talking to us, that little voice in our head says things like, I agree with this, I don't agree with this is right, this is wrong. And we end up listening to what we're saying about what they're saying versus what they're saying. So it's really important to notice that there's always two conversations going on at a time, not just one. The one the person's having with us and the one we're having with ourselves about what they're saying. And if we can listen to them versus what we're saying about what they're saying, that actually establishes real communication.
Well, and so this is something that can be taught. So if we have our listeners that are saying, gosh, I'm not a really good listener, or it sounds like it's a lot of work, it doesn't really take that much to be able to be present and listen.
It doesn't. You can, the listeners could right now, for instance, as I'm talking, they could be listening to me, but also notice, what are they saying to themselves about what I'm saying? And all that it takes is to notice it, to be aware of that. Hey, there's not one conversation going on, there's two. Which one am I listening to? It's not any different than if you're in the car with the radio playing and want to talk to somebody at the same time. You don't have to turn the radio off. You just have to focus a bit on what the person is saying, and then the radio can be playing in the background, but you can focus on what the other person is saying. So you could relate to that little voice in your head, like the radio playing in the car. You don't have to turn it off. You can just focus a bit on what the other person is saying.
Does it matter if that little voice, that self-talk that we have going on, if it's positive or negative? And if so, what can we do to make it so that we're just a better listener?
Yeah, I don't think it really matters if it's positive or negative. I think it's literally either listening to them or listening to us. I think the thing that really matters is to listen for what the other person is really concerned for, what's important to them in what they're saying. We always have what's important to us, and we sometimes miss that when people are communicating something, more than what they're saying is why is what they're saying important to them? What really matters to them? What are they really concerned about? And if we can appreciate what really matters to people and what they're concerned about in the conversation, then guess what? They'll really appreciate and know that we're listening. And then they'll also then be willing to listen to us.
Well, and that's where conversation all happens, right?
That's right. That's right. That's where people, communication is people really being engaged with each other. And, when somebody knows that what is important to them is respected by us, that what is important to them is heard by us, when they know that, then they get satisfied in the conversation and they'll engage with us. Sometimes people repeat themselves, yes? If you ever notice yourself or myself, when I repeat myself, the only reason I repeat myself is because I don't think I was heard the first time. So if you have somebody around you that's repeating themselves a lot, the chances are they don't think that you're hearing them, or that you're really listening, or that you're really considering what they're saying. We can hear them, but if we just dismiss what they say as invalid, then they'll have the experience that we really didn't listen. At least consider it. Oh, it may not be my view, but it is a view, and it's their view, and it's a valid view, even if we're not worried about it. Is it right or wrong or true or false? It's a view.
Well, and David, so are you thinking that, have you seen this, that with the generation that we have now, that this is a skill set that really needs to be taught now more than ever? Because people seem to be having, aside from when we look at differences in families with politics or what have you, but people are so connected to devices that they really don't know how to communicate anymore.
Well, it is. It's really important. And I think the thing is that in this day and age, it's really important that we have being related be more important than being right. And I think what's happened is, being right has taken precedent over being related. So even in our families or around our own dinner tables, if we listen to the conversation, what's more important, being related, being family, being in communication, having love present, or being right about something? And I think it's really important that we make that shift and have being related be more important than being right.
Mm-hmm. How can couples change? Like, let's say we have a married couple, and they're saying, well, this person always does that, or they've kind of got this negative viewpoint of one another. What ways can that be changed, and they can create a new space for love?
Well, it's really important that people distinguish between what actually happens or what actually is said, and then what we add to what is said. So, for instance, if somebody says they'll be home at 6 and they come home at 6:05, that's what happens. Oftentimes we'll add something to that, like they don't respect me, or I'm not important, or they can't be counted on. But if you can hear the difference between what actually happened, they came home at 6:05 when they said they'd be home at 6, and what we add to that, they can't be counted on, they don't respect me, I'm not important enough to them. And get that what we added is really added, and it didn't happen. And then what there is to notice is that most of our arguments are about what got added to what happened, not what actually happened. And just separating those two things out. Literally 99% of our experience of life comes from what we add to what happens, not what happens itself. So it's really important to separate those two things out. Another way to say what we add to what happens is our story about what happens or our interpretation of what happened. I'll give you another example. What if you're talking and somebody interrupts you? Okay, you're talking, they start talking while you're still talking. What we would add to that likely is, that's rude. Okay, now it's just important to get, hey, what actually happened is I was talking, they started talking before I was finished. Okay, I can deal with that. If I add, they're rude, and then start interacting with that they're rude, all of a sudden we'll be arguing about whether they're rude or not, and the conversation we really wanted to have is over.
That is so true. And then we start with the the labeling, which doesn't do anyone service.
It sure doesn't, does it? And another thing, too, is that, sometimes people do say things, right? And they say things to us that just like we can hardly imagine they're saying, right? It's like they just seem so wrong or they seem so off base or something, right? It's almost like, what did they say? One of the things I've really learned is we don't have to respond to everything either. So if somebody's talking and they say something that you just can't, it just, is so out of the ballpark, you can't quite imagine what they said or why they said it. A lot of times it's good to let those kind of things just go by and not even respond to them. And then just come back with and stay with, hey, here's what I'm committed to in this conversation, and return to the commitment of the conversation. That's another point. That knowing what we're committed to in the conversation versus just the content. So, or we're going to talk about who's going to pick the baby up at the babysitter, right? Okay, there's the content, who's going to pick the baby up at the babysitter, but there's also the commitment of it, which is, the commitment to, the family working, everybody, the baby being well taken care of, life working fairly. We're committed to having a real extraordinary family where we take care of each other and support each other. And having that commitment clear in the conversation at the beginning really helps deal with whatever comes up in the conversation that may be difficult to deal with.
That, I love how you put that, because it makes it, you just really broke it down so it's easy to get to the conversation without kind of getting thrown in the weeds in regards to all this extra stuff we put in.
Yeah, and then if something comes up, it's, I just had a couple that I was working with recently, and it was pretty much that they were arguing about who was going to take care of the baby in the morning while they were both trying to get dressed and get off to work. And they were arguing about that, right? And, they were arguing about it in the absence of or without talking together about what really mattered to them, about their family life and about their home life. So they stopped and they talked about what really mattered, and they talked about, empowering each other and mutual respect and love being present in their home. They talked about that for a few minutes. Then they went back to resolve, okay, how are we going to take care of the baby in the morning? And they resolved it literally in 1 minute because they were now so clear about what really mattered to them.
Wow. That's amazing. It's, and I think, because we've got the holidays, it's just right around the corner. Then we come into the new year, and this is kind of the time of year where everyone gets together with family. We might, not have seen this family for, maybe we see them once a year, and maybe because we don't communicate well. When these kind of things happen, when we have these family gatherings, and there's somebody that's in the group that's completely inflexible, how can we maintain a peaceful conversation and still make sure that these, that everyone feels heard?
Well, I think that the main thing again is to have the commitment to being related be more important than some point being made. So even if somebody really disagrees with us, okay, maybe we're never going to agree. Okay, but that doesn't mean that we can't fully respect each other and fully love each other. And so if the commitment is, if the senior commitment really is our relatedness, our respect for each other, our love for each other, and we're just unwilling to sacrifice that for anything. Certainly we're unwilling to sacrifice it to just make some point that somebody's wrong and we're right. That will go a long way to have any Thanksgiving dinner or holiday dinner or holiday gathering be really, really enjoyable, even if people are there with different opinions about things and different points of view.
Well, I love that you said that, and so I've got all these questions for you. We'll of course never have enough time to hit all of them, but since we have you here, so with that being said, is honesty the best policy, even with family members?
For sure, I think it's. I'd like to change the word from honesty to authenticity. It's a little bit different. Honesty sounds something like this. I like your hat. I don't like your hat, right? Somebody says, do you like my hat? Honesty is you're thinking, no, it's ugly, but you have to say yes, right? That's honesty, okay? I don't know. See, mostly, honesty in terms of, if it's about our opinions about things, I don't think it's that important because the truth is, our opinions aren't us. Like, we have opinions. They're not who we are. There's something we have. Like, we have shirts, we have opinions. So authenticity is something else. Authenticity is when really you are not pretending anything with the person. Like, you're really there, open and sharing yourself and, having them know the real you versus. And it's important to get our opinions aren't the real us. Our opinions are just something we have. The real us is, what we really care about and what really matters to us. So if we're authentic about what we really care about and what really matters to us versus quote unquote honest about our opinions, etc., I think that really is a powerful environment.
Mm. I'm so glad that you said that because a lot of people feel like their opinions are them. They don't see that difference, that it's just like a shirt. I mean, we can change our shirt, we can change our opinions.
Yeah, I'll give you a simple test for it, right? Which is simple as, okay, well, do we choose our opinions or do we just end up with them? All right, and then if our opinion changes, are we still there? So our opinions come and go. We're always there. So if our opinions can come and go, then we must not be our opinions. They must just be something we have.
Well, you broke that down.
Mm-hmm.
That made that easy to understand.
Good.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and so let's say we have someone has said a mean or hurtful comment to us. What's the best way to move forward through all that?
I think a couple things, again, is to really remember that there's a difference between what they said and what they said mean, or the story we make up about it. So, and if we can keep that clear, there's a lot that we won't get offended by that we would usually get offended by. So if somebody says, why are you dating him? For instance, or why are you dating her? Okay. And then we could make up a story called, hey, they think we're stupid, or they think we're being foolish, or they think we're making a mistake, or they don't trust us. That would be adding something to their question, why are you dating him, or why are you dating her? If we can listen to, hey, they just asked me a question, why am I dating him, or why am I dating her? Okay, well, let me answer the question. Again, if we add a story to that called They Don't Trust Me, then we'll start dealing with whether they trust us or not, and we'll get offended, and there'll be an argument over it. So the fact is that, people are always saying something or not saying something, and they're actually, whether it's rude or not, or whether it's insulting or not, or whether it's hurtful or not, is actually something we add to what they say. So I, for one, always try to interact with what people actually say and not what I decide or think about or, interpret about what they said.
Do you find that keeps communication much more clear?
It does. It does. It doesn't get sidetracked that way. And then the other person again, and sometimes people ask questions or say things, and sometimes they don't even know why they're asking or saying. So sometimes I ask, is that a serious question or is that a serious statement? Do you want me to respond to that? And sometimes they go, no, I was just saying something, or I was just spouting off. But if it's a serious question, then I'll answer it, right? Mm-hmm. But again, dealing with what they said or asked, not my view of what they said or asked.
Well, and, again, I think that's perfect, because here you're asking them, is that a serious question? You're letting them know that they've been heard and giving them the opportunity to make adjustments if they need to, or keep it the way it is. So that the off-the-wall questions, either legitimate or something they need to rephrase.
Yeah, exactly, and they have that chance to do that too.
Yeah, because I think every once in a while we all do that, Something will just come flying out, and you're like, whoa, what was that?
What was that? Didn't mean to say that. We do react to things, right? And sometimes we react so fast, our reactions are surprising even to us. Yeah, and one of the things I find in conversations every once in a while, I just use a simple phrase. Can I take that back? Right? I'll say something I didn't really want to say. Can I take that back? And almost always the person will let you take it back. You go, sure. Good. Let me start over. Can I take that back? That's not what I really wanted to say.
Well, and what a great tool, because I think a lot of times when people do have things that spout out, they're like, ooh, what do I do now? Because there it is, I'm stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a great tool. Hey, can I take that back? Let me start over. It's so soft doing that.
Yeah. And almost, I rarely find the person that doesn't let me take it back if I want to.
So you ran into a few that won't?
Oh, they, again, if somebody gets particularly, offended by something, right, then they'll say, no, you said it, right? But then, okay, I did. All right. And then I can apologize for the impact that it had on them, because I never intended to have that impact on them. If they're clear, if the other person is always clear that what is most important to us is respecting them, being related to them, being in communication with them, that's what's most important. And nothing else. Being right about something or, getting a point of view across, that's not as important as being related. When the other person really knows that is true for us, boy, they can work anything out with us. Yeah,
because they really, it's a whole thing that we're being present for them. They feel like, what they have to say has value and worth. A lot of people do struggle with, not feeling like they've been heard.
Exactly, and a lot of times, we want to be heard first. Okay, I find what really works is to have a little patience, and if I want to be heard, it really works is to make sure the other person is heard first. It may take a little patience, but if they're heard, then they can listen to us. If I just want to be heard and don't listen to them, it doesn't work that well. And the other thing is, sometimes I have things that are really important to me, and the other person has things that are really important to them. If I expect them to care what's important to me, if I don't care what's important to them, it doesn't work that way. I'll give you a silly example, okay? My mom, she's 92 years old. She cares about coupons. Coupons for canned beans and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So if I call my mom, she'll want to talk for a while about the coupons she clipped that day. I don't have much interest in coupons myself. Okay. So if I go, Mom, that's not important, I want you to talk about what's important to me, it doesn't work, right? And I don't even have to force myself to be interested in coupons. That's not the point. The point is, it's important to my mom. She cares about it. So what's important to me is what's important to my mom. Not the coupons aren't important to me. It's what's important to my mom is important to me. So I can listen to anything, and then I get updated on all the coupons of the day, and so, and then after she's done telling me about the coupons, she'll say, okay, well, what are you doing? And then she'll really listen to what's important to me for the day.
Oh my God, that is too adorable. I mean, but it makes perfect sense, because that could be, substitute coupons for like football or politics or
absolutely
anything. You listen to tell the story about their coupons.
Yeah, exactly. And if I go, oh, that's silly, here's what we should really talk about, they won't want to talk to me about that. But if I simply go, hey, that's important, okay, tell me about it, and I can listen for a while. And really, again, I don't try to fake being interested in it. What I'm interested in is them, and it's important to them. That's what interests me. And then after that's over, good, then they can listen to anything that I would like to share with them.
Well, and so I've got a question. So every once in a while, I think everyone knows a person that they're kind of like a runaway freight train with a discussion. So you start in a discussion, and like 2 hours later, they're finally finishing what they have to say, and it's not really an engaging discussion. What do you do in situations like that?
Well, a couple things about that. I find, first off, that if I'm really listening, now there's a difference between just kind of sitting there hearing them, going, yeah, okay, versus really listening. If I'm really listening to the person and they know I'm really paying attention to what they're saying, they oftentimes don't ramble like that. They kind of focus because they know they're really being listened to. If I sit there kind of, doing something else and kind of going, yeah, then they can just ramble because there's no, my listening isn't focusing their speaking. But if I really listen, a lot of times it has people get focused in what they're saying. And then again, they don't repeat themselves. And then if somebody really is like that, oftentimes I'll just ask a simple question. What's important about this that you want me to hear? And then that has them focus. And the conversation gets very, 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 again, it gets, focused, or it gets to be real communication versus just kind of rambling or talking on and on.
I appreciate you sharing that with us. I know a person very dear to my heart, and, it's interesting. We get on the phone, and sometimes I feel like, gosh, I want to be more engaged in the discussion, but it's tough to do that with, not being able to and really participate. And I think a lot of times I like how you said it. I mean, I'm not really being a very good listener, so I need to hone in my skills.
And if they know you're really listening, if your friend really knows you're listening, I bet he or she gets more succinct. And then again, if not, just ask that simple question. What's really important about this you want me to understand or hear? And that will definitely have them focus.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Well, and so what other tips do you have for our listeners that they can make conscious changes in the way that they not only present themselves, but they're involved in discussion? I know we've covered a lot of it already.
Well, I think the main thing is that we come to every conversation with preconceived notions. We even, a lot of times before the person even speaks, we pretty much have already decided what they're going to say. Or they start a conversation and we think we know what they're going to say about it. And it's really important to put aside our preconceived notions and be there this time to hear what they're saying this time. And that really then has a conversation be fresh and real communication versus just kind of, noise back and forth. It's really important that it's not just noise. It really is people in communication with each other.
Yeah, having a meaningful discussion, and again, that could be about coupons, or football.
It could.
Or whatever
it could.
that is. Yeah.
And I'm always interested in two things. I always am interested in what matters to the other person, more than the content, okay? What really matters to the other person. And then I'm always interested in that the other person is left honored, with the experience of being honored and respected by being in a conversation with me. And if I've got those two commitments, what matters to them and that they're left honored and respected, and then two things. A, I actually will love the conversation. They'll actually be open in the conversation. And then if I really do have something I want to say, they'll be able to listen to it.
Well, and so let's say we just meet somebody for the first time. How do we know what really matters to them?
You may not. Again, you don't have any preconceived notion, but you can hear as you listen to what they're saying. Maybe they're saying something political, or maybe they're saying something, an opinion about anything, right? You can hear, hey, there's just a good question. What must really matter to this person that they want to tell me this? And if I ask myself that question, I can almost always hear it. And if not, I'll ask them.
And they'll just tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And it has them think about it too. See, if you ask them, hey, what really matters to you that you want to tell me this? It has them think about, why am I saying this? A lot of times people haven't even thought why they're saying something. They're just saying something. But if you ask them, hey, what really matters to you that has you tell me this? It has them think about it too, which is always, and I find people really enjoy that.
I think that is a beautiful way to get to know people better on a deeper level, and also really engage, as you were saying. I loved how you talked about making people feel that they've been honored and respected. Love that. Absolutely love that. Because, everyone should walk away feeling that when we have conversations.
Yeah, and if you have a conversation with another person and they walk away with the experience of being honored, respected, loved, boy, that satisfies you as the person listening, okay? And then one other thing, just really simple. The fastest way to being related to another human being is acknowledging them. Find something to acknowledge them for, thank them for. There's always something. There's always something you can acknowledge about a person, be grateful for that person, celebrate about that person. There's always something. And if you look for that and say that, that is the fastest pathway to being related.
Well, and so, David, goodness, we can spend hours talking with you. You're such a fountain of information, especially when it comes to communicating. And, again, we could spend tons of time here. Where can people learn more about what Landmark does and your work with them?
It's very easy. There's a website. It's www.landmarkworldwide.com, landmarkworldwide.com. Very easy to find. And I think people, there's a lot of really great information on there. And other discussions like the one we just had are on there too.
Well, I know you've got lots of great information and tools and resources for people, also where they can become engaged with Landmark and continue a whole new journey. David, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
You're welcome. It's been really fun talking with you, and I hope it's useful for everybody listening.
Thank you, David. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about Landmark Worldwide and all the great work they're doing. If you'd like to learn more about David Cunningham and Landmark, please visit the website landmarkworldwide.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.